What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. All right, y'all. Welcome, welcome. I am so glad you are with us, whether you're here with us live or on a rebroadcast. I'm Daniel Aaron, your show host. We have a very cool guest today who is multi-talented. I'll tell you more about him in a minute. First, though, as we are still a brand new show, good thing you're sitting down. The name, The Art of Vibrant Living show, suggests a little bit of what it is about, and indeed what it is about, what we are about, what I'm about, what I would even submit for your mature spiritual consideration life is about, is living vibrantly, thriving, right? And what I know is that is not an accidental process, not for 99.98% of the world. We have to create that. And for most of us, it takes some learning, some reprogramming, some activities. So what we are all about here in the show is entertaining you for sure. We have great conversations and empowering you to really, truly create your most vibrant life. And I'm just delighted that you are here with us. If you're here with us live, I'm going to introduce our guest today next. And then I'm going to ask him some deep, penetrating, important questions to draw out the magic from him. And then we'll also have some space for your questions. So you can pop in questions and ask Paul directly. And you may know already about Paul. One thing is it's 3 a.m. for him in Australia. Okay, not quite. It's a little bit later than that, but it's still early morning for him. And I met Paul. He's the author of 9 books. He's had several different, very cool, conscious businesses. One that got all the way up to $600 million of valuation. And so he's a serial entrepreneur, but what I love about it even more is that he's also a man with a big heart who's very dedicated to his own growth and to helping other people. We met personally when I was living in Australia, 25 years ago. And from the moment I met him, I was like, man, this guy is on fire. He's done a lot. He's doing a lot. He's just full of information and vitality. So I will say no more and give you the chance to meet Paul live now. And Paul Benhaim from Australia, thank you so much for being with us.
Top of the morning to you, Daniel. What a wonderful day it is here in Australia. I'm really glad to be with you.
All right, awesome. So, Paul, the first thing, since I have the great blessing of knowing you for many years, but probably there's at least one or two of our viewers who don't. Who are you and how did you get to be here? Let's, what's your story? Because you were born like a normal person.
Oh, yeah. Who am I? You start off with the small questions, I guess. Apparently, I'm a human being in a human form. And I believe I started off being born in London, United Kingdom, where in a regular, middle-class family, brought up in a regular way, eating crap food and microwave food even, until I was maybe, somewhere in my teens, maybe 16, where I started to discover other things, other ways, other consciousnesses. I guess in some respects, my life changed when I first experienced things like LSD and cannabis for the first time. Which I never took regularly, but it really just did open myself up to other perspectives. Enough so to actually take me off my path of going to school and going to university. I already been told I was getting A's and B's in class, and that was enough for me. I was like, why do I need a piece of paper now? I want to go off and explore the world. So I chose to go somewhere unusual. And for me, that was Asia, Thailand. I knew nothing about Thailand or Asia at that time, when I was like 17, 18 maybe. And went with two friends, and we went to what is now known as one of the biggest party beaches. And at that time, it was a small island, no electricity, no roads, very small parties. And it was, apparently one of the best times ever in Koh Phangan 25, 30 years ago. And we had an interesting time. For 2 days, we had great parties. And my friends were like, I'm staying here forever. And I'm like, this is really interesting, but there's loads of things to explore. I'm going off to see what the indigenous cultures do. So instead, I went and left these people and went up to the hills of Thailand to explore. And I realized that the party life was interesting, fun for a bit, but not really for me. So instead of continuing in that path, I decided to explore. And I found myself on the borders of Laos, on the Mekong River, in fact, in a village where no one spoke English. There was no communication verbally at all. There was no tourism. And I ended up staying at someone's house on the river for 3 months, where I learned a number of things. One is that communication doesn't just happen by talking. It happens by everything else. I felt so connected to these people, even though we had very little to talk about, because no one spoke each other's languages. But I observed many things with these people. In these traditional cultures, I saw how they were going off, or the men were going off and doing some hunting. Then the women were preparing food. The women were serving food. The women were cleaning up. And the men were sleeping in the afternoon. And you get the picture is like, what traditional cultures do, I guess, with their basic surrounds. And that was all interesting. But what was really interesting about all of that was the community aspect of it and the happiness factor. These people were the most vibrant people that I ever met. And I'd been brought up in London, millions of people all around me, people who are telling me to wash my hands and do this to keep healthy and that. These people were living in literal shit, excuse my language, at this time of day. And they were happy and healthy in every form. So I found that fascinating. And that became the beginning of my journey, which led me to study about nutrition. It introduced me to a new concept soon after that, which was meditation. I had no idea what meditation was until I found myself in a Vipassana retreat going, wow, this is something different. And really, again, another life-changing event. Had many life-changing events along this journey for sure. And that ultimately was the beginning of 10 years on the road, traveling throughout Asia, different cultures, and particularly Southeast Asia, mainly India, Nepal, Thailand, and these places where I learned about food, nutrition, health, and I continued my relationship with the cannabis plant, which I have had to this very day.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, and and as you're describing that, I realized that for you and I, like leaving our country of origin, going out into the unknown, having those kind of adventures seems like a normal thing. Though so many times in my life, I've heard from people like, "Oh, you're so lucky that you live in Hawaii, or that you live in Bali, or whatever it was." And it never occurred to me that it has anything to do with luck. It just, to me, it's, well, I want to do this. But what do you think is like, and so many of your, fellows from the UK, and not as bad as the US, like most people in the US have never left the US. More people in the UK have traveled. But what do you think, what is it in you that gave you the impetus, the courage, the desire to break out when so many people don't?
Well, as I said, probably the first mind-altering experiences I had led me to the fact that the world was greater and bigger than I had ever imagined or been taught in school, and that there was a bigger reality out there, and I just wanted to explore that. And I said to myself, I'm going to do whatever it took to make that happen. How I managed to make that happen is through hustling. I learned about, well, if I buy something here and I sell it here, I pay enough money to live for another week. It's like, wow, if I do that a few times, I can live for 6 months. And then I kept doing that and lived for 10 years, just buying and selling things, that giving value to some people, introducing them to places. Of course, that's not so easy these days because you have eBay and Amazon basically, and so that buying and selling stuff by traveling doesn't work so easily. But there are other things you can do, of course, in terms of traveling. And I think what you're saying, what I hear you saying, is that doing what you want is about being on purpose. Is like, if you choose to do something, you can do it, and there is no limitations. And it may seem, well, that's impossible. And when I was young, I was like, even when I was traveling in Asia, I was like, oh, going somewhere exotic was still amazing. It's like, oh, one day I'll make it to the Maldives, for example. I'm trying to think of somewhere I haven't been, and I still haven't been to the Maldives yet. And I was thinking that's never going to be, because it's really expensive, 5-star. And since that time, I realized that there is nowhere you can't go. There's always a way. And I've met many young travelers who go to these really exclusive places, and they just work, whether it's working on a boat, working in a resort, offering some service to people. There's always something that you can do to realize anything you want in life. And that was one of the lessons that I've learned in life, is that there are no limits, literally no limits. And there's even no limits beyond what you think is no limits, because you only know what you know, and you truly can do anything. So I've loved exploring that and thinking about the biggest things that I want to do. And often the biggest things I want to do is actually be in the garden, be grounded. And that's what I love to do a lot. And that's what I choose to do, unless I find something I go, oh no, that's a big enough cause, I'm going to go and do something about that. And oftentimes I'm really careful when I choose that, because when I choose to do something big, it usually lends myself to the next 10 years or lifetime journey, something that has added to my lifetime journey to create something that doesn't exist, which is kind of fun. People call it, well, you're a pioneer. That's really cool. I'm like, no, that's really not fun, actually, being a pioneer. That's probably one of the hardest things, because you are literally breaking new ground. For many years, I've talked to people about what I've been doing and been ignored for 10 years. And then all of a sudden, I'm an overnight success in something. It's like, no, I've been telling you that for 10 years. There's no overnight success in that. The world has been ready for that message, I guess, today. But none of those things really matter to me, because if I feel something, and if I feel a mission to do something, and I want to make a change in the world, that's what I'll do. And we can all do that in any shape or form, however big or small. It's not about the size. It's about what we choose to do in our lives.
Yeah, nicely said. Okay, cool. Well, so there's a lot in there that we could play with, and and for sure, one of the things that I want to speak with you about and draw from you is you've got this great experience with business, and you described it a little bit there when you started traveling and hustling and selling something here. So, like, part of you had that entrepreneurial vision or drive. You knew it was possible. And as I was thinking about the great blessing of getting to speak with you today, I recalled our common friend, so to speak, Michael Singer, and one of the amazing things about him is the depth of spiritual practice, along with the success in the entrepreneurial world, which is something I recognize as being very similar to you. And you remind me of him, which to me is a compliment. I hope it comes across that way. And so what I wonder, though, before we go into any more specifics around your business experience, what would you say is the relationship between vibrancy, or creating a vibrant life, having a wonderful, amazing life, living up to one's potential, and entrepreneurship?
Short answer is nothing and everything. So, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Because I was never into business. Like I in fact, the opposite. I was quite anti-business as a young lad, traveling, and I left the opportunity to become really successful about business. And I joined, I guess, a traveling community of people around the world, kind of a traveling circus, so to speak. It wasn't literally a circus, though. I did hang out with some circuses along the way, which was another story, quite fun ones. And I was like, even when I first came to Australia, I remember when I came here that I was one of the people helping people chain themselves to trees, saying, don't chop down the forest, being quite an activist in a lot of ways, being really anti-government, anti-business, anti anything that stood for the system that had treated people wrong in some regards. So I have a lot of, I can relate to a lot of what people go through when they become those people. And I thankfully had the opportunity, by mistake really, I literally stumbled onto the meditation retreat, for example, that I mentioned earlier, which led me ultimately to going, oh, let's try some yoga, which ultimately led me on my spiritual path of looking at myself. And that's all, for me, a spiritual path is looking at oneself and how we relate and react to the world and what's around us. And that path has been an ongoing journey, and I'm really blessed to have shared some of that journey with you in terms of moving through some different parts of our experiences in this world. And it's from that space that I realized that business is not evil. Government are not, there's not a thing or a person called government. There are individuals, and we are all ultimately the same. We're all human beings. And to make, if we don't like something in something that we see, it's simply, for me now, a reflection of part of what we have, a reality. Our reality is through our direct experience, and there are positive parts of reality and there are negative parts of reality. But those negative parts of reality aren't bad, and they can't be ignored, and they can't be fought against, for me. Now, as I said, I still appreciate the activists who literally physically stop people cutting down trees. I'm using that as an example, or doing something to stop bad things happening in the world. And we need some people like that, absolutely. But for me, I would rather look behind that and go, okay, so I'll use that example. I never think I've done that before, but why are they cutting down trees? Why are they cutting? Well, because they need materials to make something, to building or to make paper. But why are they really doing it? Well, they're doing it. The people are actually doing it because they need an income. Well, why are they doing that? Because they live in a system that is run by a financial world where they need to pay for things. And, so the more you ask questions, the deeper you go into the understanding, the empathy, I guess, of why they do these things, the more you can go, okay, I can see the root cause of some of those things. What do I want to change in that root cause to make the ultimate change of where it becomes natural not to chop down trees? So, for example, how in that same example, as part of the reason I got involved with industrial hemp or cannabis, because it is an alternative to materials, so bioplastics instead of using fossil fuels. Paper, we can make paper without trees whatsoever. Et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I realized. If I can provide an alternative, then maybe people will stop cutting down trees, in one example. And that led me to going, okay, well, how do I do that? Well, to do that, I have to learn business. And so what is business? And then I had to I taught myself literally each stage of business. And that predominantly started, I guess, by my personal interest in psychology. And I had studied a little bit of psychology at school and understanding, I guess, how people think and why they think in a particular way, which was a good foundation, which was added to with the spiritual interest in Buddhism and all these Eastern philosophies, I guess, which continues for me today. It's one of the most fascinating things I love. I love marketing. I love to understand how we communicate, because in my opinion, all businesses are led forward through their marketing. And what is marketing then? It's just a way of communication. It's a way of connecting with people. And so at the foundation, I realized that I had already realized that connection with people is absolutely foundational to a vibrant life, to who we are, to how we are. And if we don't see that, if we see that, I should say, we will then realize that we can cultivate that connection by communicating in a way that's understandable to as many people as possible. So I do my best to find ways to communicate universal languages which go beyond countries, cultures, in which is, things like, do we want to see suffering in the world? No one wants to see suffering. So how do we communicate? How do we refer to what we want to do in the world with what is a universal language? How do we communicate that? And today, and the tools for that change over time. It was much more simple that when I was starting out on business. Today, there is so much information everywhere that we're always connected to in our phones and on our screens. So how do we get through all of that to as many people as possible to make that change? And that's and I could go on as well. So.
Well, that's great, and I'm with you. It's I find there's so much misunderstanding, especially in our very polarized sort of political world, especially here in the U.S. And people that from one side look over and they say, well, capitalism is bad. And, and I said, well, no, I mean, sure, there are some bad actors that are capitalists. There are also people that are operating out of empathy and wanting to improve things. And I love what you said about the relationship between psychology and communication and marketing. I had I was on a call with one of my coaches a couple of days ago, and he was speaking about he's from the same part of the U.S. that I am, the Northeast, and I don't know if people know the Northeast accent. It's not pretty, it's like Boston. Like I say, Maine is like a Boston accent, but dumber, and then up in Boston, you talk like this, you park the car in the garage. So I was saying to my coach, I was like, so you must have, consciously worked at escaping that accent so that you could communicate with people, right? And that was my assumption. And I said it out loud, and he thought about it for a minute. He said, I think it's really about empathy, and if we have a natural empathy, which is part of what I heard you saying, or a cultivated empathy, that we're naturally tuning in to the other person. We're sort of assimilating to their vibration and, what language and what words and what accents will work for them. So, yeah, I think what you said is a beautiful answer. You want to say something else on that?
I mean, I could say plenty of all of these things, but what I heard you say is simply awareness. I mean, that was the word that came to me as I was listening to you, and that's when I realized that's what was being cultivated in the Buddhist teachings, for example. Is one of the. I'm not Buddhist. I'm not any religion particularly, but I think there's something to gain from all the religions. There is some common detailed truth and just general awareness. And that awareness comes through in business. It can come through in anything you do whatsoever. So just being in the moment is really helpful when you're aware of what's going on around you at all times. When I don't, and I actually recognize that doesn't happen so much anymore, because it's really hard to be aware when we are being stimulated from so many different angles. And how I understand that is happening is because there's so many people trying to market things at you and to you. And they're so clever at it these days that it seems so subtle. It is done so subtly, and people go, "Oh, I'm just scrolling on my feed." No, you're being programmed, and that's okay if you're aware of it. It's okay in small amounts if you're aware of it, but most people aren't. Even my closest friends, and even when I point it out to them, they don't often get that and what that means, and that's okay too. I also wanted to mention something about you saying, capitalism is okay, because it's interesting. I went to a local conference, a local mini festival, I guess, and of the next younger generation, we'll say, and they were very much anti-capitalists. And I really listened to what they're saying, and there was some really strong truths in what they were saying, and there were really things that I really didn't agree with. And I found that quite fascinating. So I've actually got a meeting with some of the organizers to have a deeper chat with them and saying, look, I get what you're saying, that you don't like the system that exists, and having a revolution, against the system is the message that you're sharing, is one of the two messages you're sharing. But, the revolution is by making change, not by saying there's going to be a revolution. That's kind of a fighting energy. And for me, that doesn't work. And maybe there are times that it does work. My experience is it generally doesn't. Going up and fighting something is like, he's pushing, I don't know, there's a bad expression in England called pushing shit up a hill, which is really hard to do and not fun to do. Don't recommend it. But the other part of their message that is really super positive, which I have seen from a number of different fields around the world, and is for me cutting edge, awareness, we'll say, is that the only way to evolve forward for human beings is to work together. Now, it's a very simple statement maybe, but for me, that's one of the deepest recognitions and understandings that seems to be coming up into modern human consciousness, is that there is no longer a time where we can be separate from everybody. And that's, again, another concept that I've always known in my head, understand and truly believed and wanted. But now I feel that that is the way to move forward, by us coming together as humanity and going, hey, it's not Daniel and Paul, it's Daniel and Paul. We're the same thing. To recognize that we truly are the same thing. We are mainly vibrations, and we just appear to be individual people. And I know I'm maybe getting a little bit esoteric here, but it's true. For me, I fully feel it. I fully experience it. And I see the belief in separation. And I truly believe that's simply a belief that we're separate. And I think maybe climate change, maybe the future of artificial intelligence, maybe these things that are speeding up, that some people are going, no, we don't want that happening. We don't want to be run and controlled. You know, those people may not see that, but the people that go, okay, let's bring that in and let's see, but let's bring it in with awareness. We're going, wow, we don't have a choice, the way I see it. These new technologies are taking us to the next level and will give us an opportunity to either evolve or disappear as a race, which seems quite extreme to me. And I love extremities, but even I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big extreme of two potential realities that could happen. And they're both very real, which for me is a great opportunity. It's like, great, we have the opportunity finally to evolve as a human race. This is not a small change that's happened, and there's been big changes, like the Industrial Revolution was quite a big change. Standing up from being an ape to a two-legged walking human was a big change. This next change is next level again, and what it looks like, I don't think any of us can possibly appreciate or understand yet. But I really feel that is what we are moving forward with together.
Yeah. Beautifully said, all of that. And thank you. That's the first time I've heard of the variation on the Sisyphus myth, the pushing shit up the mountain, and very clear. Reminded me of the great quotation from Mother Teresa, where she was invited to a war protest, and she's like, "I'll pass on that. Though if you're having a peace rally, count me in." You know. And the way Byron Katie says it is, you know, if you're arguing with reality, you're going to lose. Just only all the time, though. So I'm totally with you in terms of that fighting energy. And then I rewind a little bit to what you were saying earlier about the value of some kinds of activism, right? And then I think of some of my heroes like Martin Luther King Jr. or Nelson Mandela or Gandhi. You know, these infusing of activism with spiritual principles like nonviolence, rooted in the idea that we are the same anyway, like hitting you would be hitting me. And you spoke a lot actually, and really beautifully about the relationship between vibrant living and entrepreneurship. And you also spoke about awareness and communication and spirituality. So in what ways would you say, if any, having spiritual awareness or spiritual practice gives one an advantage or helps one in the world in general, and specifically in business or entrepreneurship?
It's a great question, and it's one that I would like to say, you know, being a spiritual person gives you an advantage because of this, this, and this. But my actual experience in the world is sometimes, like, I'm shocked that some people who do have zero spiritual experience have, you know, more fighting people. They actually can be really successful in the world. So, and I can't understand that sometimes, except that, okay, that's just the way it is. It's just my opportunity to experience that there is no one way to succeed. So I don't want to say, here's a pill, you know, and the pill could be, become a spiritual person, learn this, and make a success with everything. My experience is that doesn't happen. I think something greater happens at a deeper level, which is you have the spiritual experience, then you have deeper lessons. And sometimes those deeper lessons are, you think you're going here, but hey, no, that's not going to work out for you. And we're going to teach you something that will make you even deeper and have a deeper understanding and ultimately become more resilient to whatever may happen in the future. So I'm still living my life in this human form. I'm still experiencing different things. So I still don't know all the lessons that I have to learn. I still don't know all the reasons I've had some experiences yet. And I don't feel a need, I must have that all together right now. What I do know is that there is usually a reason for everything. I truly see humanity now in a really clear way where if you put humanity in a bubble, like our world, our universe even, and put a big ring around that, I truly believe this is an experiment. Humanity is like a game. It's a show. It's something, it's like watching a movie. It's a theater. And that when this theater is over, when we die, and this is just my personal current belief, is that we go into what is really reality. We go back to our ultimate connected, unlimited form, whatever that may be. And I don't believe that we can conceptualize that in our minds, but it is what we live in eternity in. And we are so blessed we won the lottery. I think so. I remember someone saying, by becoming human. And how exciting is that? We get this opportunity to play with this limited brain, this limited facility, or the brain that limits our awareness. And we need that to deal with all the stimulation and all the different things that we've created in this game. So I see everything around me as, wow, this is what I chose to have around me. And right now, I'm looking at big trees outside. I'm looking at the sun shining. I'm looking at pictures of my local beach. I'm going, I've created a pretty awesome life for me, considering I was born in London. I've changed my world around me to play this game in the best way that I possibly can. And the best way that I possibly can is, for me, finding the balance between my mission and what I want to change in this world, with the groundedness of where I am right now in this moment. No matter whether it's positive or negative, I've had to learn to accept there's beauty in everything around me, wherever I am, in any shape or form. And I feel blessed to have realized that from when I was living on $1 a day in Asia to when I was making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, traveling first class, meeting with the most powerful people on the planet. And it's often easier, in fact, when I'm living on nothing and having the simplicity of nothing and no baggage, to recognize the beauty of the world. But the beauty of the world exists in all the moments. And when I made it to the pinnacle, I guess, of my career so far, I recognized that beauty around me and going, wow, I have the opportunity to change some of the most powerful people in the world right now, by inspiring them to actually care about what they're doing, not just to make more in the system, which is designed to make more and to make more and to make more. And whether that system is right or wrong, and I see some obviously challenges with a capitalistic system, but I also believe in the benefits of it as well. So there's always this kind of balance, and how do we create that together?
Yeah, nicely said. Well, I'm with you, and being able to use your success in a way that's having a positive influence, I think, is already one answer to the next question that I have for you. I think there's more, though, that I'd love to get from you, if you're willing. And you said a moment ago that, like, there isn't necessarily a rule, like, well, if you're spiritual, then you'll have more success, because it seems to happen in maybe not random ways, but ways that don't necessarily fit any one pattern or rule. And yeah, there are people that seem like they're just greedy or cutthroat, or don't care about the impact of what they're doing. And from one perspective anyway, well, that seems to be working for them. But I sense, and you may agree, disagree, have a different perspective, but I sense there's an importance for anyone to align their values with their activities, or what's sometimes called right livelihood. And I don't know that we can necessarily see from the outside. If we see the evil monster tycoon, like we don't know what's going on on the inside there. So we can't necessarily say, well, is it a success or not? We can measure it in terms of, net worth or whatever. But what would you say in terms of value alignment with work or right livelihood? Does it matter? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a much better question, and I think that's where the alignment of a spiritual practice in the world and in business it makes all the difference. How we are inside is the measure of success. So that's what I was hearing from you just then was, what is the measure of success really? So is it, because you've got a big house, a car, a wife, kids, and plenty of money in the bank, is that a success? Absolutely not. I've been sure of that since I was very young. It is about how one feels inside with the change, which is why I was answering the last question with, does a spiritual life mean success in business? Well, no, but it means success in resilience in whatever happens in business, in life, and anything. So you can feel successful even if you have a failure. And I've had some significant failures in my career. I guess as you mentioned earlier, I built some really big companies, made massive net worth, which was not my goal, but was all as a consequence of what I was building by helping millions of people worldwide through natural alternatives, which people wanted, which was fantastic. But I also lost a lot of that through some, I guess, mistakes. Now, mistakes are just experiences and more learning lessons. And I lost, in one of my experiences, nearly $300 million of my net worth, which was pretty much 98% of my net worth in 9 months of my career. And what an experience that was for me, in testing myself to go, am I truly resilient in this? And I really was. It's fascinating to myself even. I'm still surprised and shocked at myself. It's like, I didn't really feel that bad about losing everything because it wasn't my value. That wasn't my measure of success. My measure of success is I'm still got the trees around me. I can still go and walk to the beach. I can still eat food and have and shelter over my head. It's and even though I had been, as I said, traveling first class, to do all these wonderful things around the world, losing all of that for a minute was a bit more than a minute, but as big as that was, and I don't know if people can grasp what $300 million is, but it's a lot, which I felt that I could do so much more good with and push really wonderful causes, help so many more people around me. I was so excited to do that. And then I lost it all. And I'm like, oh, okay. It comes down to what does that mean to me? It was just a number. Anyway, it was just a piece of paper. It didn't really mean anything more than that, except it was an opportunity to do things. But maybe I wasn't meant to do that. I was meant to do something else. That was going to lead me along a path to do something different. Now I found myself doing different things, and I still don't know where that will lead. As I said, because human life is a journey. So I don't know where it brings me to yet, but I do know that I'm so grateful for my health, for my ability to live my life in the way I choose, which is to experience and appreciate everything I possibly can at every moment that I can, to work with people with an integrity, to enjoy working with the people I choose to bring around me, to have wonderful conversations with people like yourself, to support people in a way which I can do. I don't need money to do any of those things. And money, again, is just a tool that comes and goes. And so, again, coming back to your question, is right livelihood and the practice of spirituality supportive for all of those things. That is the rock. That is actually the rock that means that you can be resilient through even the most challenging of times. And I've had many other challenging times, not just monetary wise, around me. And I felt that it hasn't changed how I look at things and how things happen. They come, good things come, bad things come. These are all passing. They all will pass. What won't change is my inside growth. What I have learned, and that practice will stay. So yeah, I hope that helps.
That's great. And I'll echo a couple of the things you said, because I think it's so important and so valuable. and really recognize the wisdom that comes with that. I've been into philosophy since I was a kid, and I'm always learning and studying more philosophy. Lately, I've been going for deepening my knowledge of the Stoic philosophers, right, from way back, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. And two things that are really big in the Stoic philosophy, I think you highlighted really well. One is how important it is to be able to, yes, dine with kings and also, sleep on the street, metaphorically speaking, right? To be the same person and to be able to have happiness, whether you've got the first class flight or whether you can't afford to fly out of the country for a while or whatever it is. And that's part of the Stoic practice. And not just in the Stoics, other religions have this too, is to periodically give yourself the bare minimum and experience what it's like to go for 3 days eating just beans and rice, or to sleep on the floor rather than the cushy bed. And the other thing that I heard you say that relates really well to Stoic philosophy is there are so many things that are outside of our control and don't necessarily make a huge difference in our lives anyway, or even sometimes are counterproductive to what we want. Yet the one thing that is always in our control and always does make a difference to who we are, to living how we want, is our character. And no matter what's happening in life, we can use that to build our character, to improve our character, which, resilience is one of the ways you put that. And I'm curious though, like there's a great saying that, everybody knows that money won't buy happiness, but most everybody wants to find out for themselves, right? So, you describe this thing, which for a lot of people is really unimaginable. I had a $300 million net worth and then poof, it's gone. And you dealt with it really well. And I know that because I was, we were in communication during some of that time. But how did you do that? Like, what made the difference?
What made the difference to...
Well, compared to a lot of people would have nervous breakdowns, or, they really lose it or get angry or bitter. I mean, what you described is not that you were, didn't have any reaction, but you described in some way, it sounded like an increased appreciation for yourself and life.
Yeah. I mean, for the reasons you shared before, I guess it was, first of all, the foundation was my passion and purpose. I feel a passion for what I love to do in the world. And that is unchangeable. You can, money can come and go. And just to be clear, money does buy happiness, I believe, but it's not unlimited. So money can certainly buy happiness, but not forever. And happiness, if that's your goal, that's great. I've learned that, for me at least, happiness is great, but it comes and goes as well. I think more contentment is more interesting for me and more lasting, more deep set. So contentment can mean content with happiness, content with sadness. I think all of those things are important, because what is pure happiness? I don't think anyone can live in pure happiness, because you need sadness to balance out the happiness, to show you that there is happiness. If you don't have any sadness, then happiness doesn't mean anything. You just become to this equanimous space, and that equanimous space can exist now. You don't need to just have perfect happiness. You can be completely comfortable with happiness, sadness, making money, not making money, being a success, not being a success, to your own definition. So what is your definition? Well, my personal definition is like, I'm quite comfortable if I'm in this human form. That's it. I mean, I strive for having good, healthy food, a good balance in my physical activity and mental activity, which has been a challenge for me over the years, but I feel like I'm certainly getting more better there. And health in general. So, those are what I strive for. But even those you can live without. I've seen that very clearly. I've been blessed to have that experience with people who have none of those things, and yet in my communication, not even with words, I can feel their contentment. And it's not that they're happy or even sad though about where they are. Do they want more? Of course they do. Do we always want more? We do. But what is the consequences of the more that we want? I think those are the things that we need to consider. So for me, I want more contentment, more resilience, more being okay with whatever happens. And on top of that, if I can reach some goals to make changes in my world, then why not? Again, we're in a playground. What can we play with? How can we do that in a way that's the least harm to others, making the most positive benefit to others? What comes from that? I don't know, because I'm still experimenting with that.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm with you on all of that, and you said it really well. Still, though, I want to, if you'll permit
Please.
me to inquire a little further, like, and I'm with you. Yes, I love the quotation. Anybody who says money can't buy happiness hasn't given enough away. Right. That's one way of looking at it, and there's a lot of argument about it, but certainly there's a difference that money can make in one's life. So was there not, though, in, when you lost a net worth of 300 million, was there not a point where you were like, oh man, this sucks?
Oh, certainly was. Plenty of times when I go, oh, this sucks. But that was about it. It's like, oh, this sucks. What's next? It's like, I realized very immediately, it was like, I have a choice to either go down into this or to deal with it. And I'm still dealing with it, to be honest, but dealing with it doesn't mean I think about it often. I only think about it when people ask me the question and I'm like, oh, well, that happened. Oh, yeah, that happened to me. I remember. But I don't think about it regularly. Just move on. And that's why I mentioned the passion and purpose is what I think fuels me to keep going. It's like, there's still things to do, and has there been times where I haven't had things to do? Yes, there have been. In the last couple of years, I've started to experience that for the first time in in a very busy career of having multiple companies globally and being a busy person. And I'm going, okay, wow, I don't know what I'm doing now. I've lost that, and I don't have the ability to do any of these things, and I can't just employ teams of people and work and create. I can't be that vibrant self that I'm used to. So what do I do? It's like, okay, what do? I sit, I breathe. That's it. I sit and breathe. That's all I need to do. And then I just look around me and become more aware of what's around me. And I look around me and go, oh, I've got a garden. There's soil there. I can cultivate that soil. I can plant vegetables in that soil. Oh, that's right. There's a community around me, because I was focusing on this global community, but there's actually a local community around me. How can I interact with this community around me? Because community is also equals resilience to me, because community is more of me. So how can I interact with that? So that leads me to, well, I love dancing. So I just go dancing and I can shake it off. That's for me, my modern meditation. So rather than having a yoga practice and a meditation, I put it all together into what I call dancing. And it's a more of a free form dancing where I get to shake off, which is kind of my yoga part. And my meditation part is by letting myself get into a trance and coming in and out and watching myself come in and out, watching myself react to, I like this music, I don't like this music. Oh, it's not about whether I like it. I got to dance that like, I got to dance that dislike. I got to let those understandings go. And I come out going, okay, I feel more peaceful. Now, what is there to do? Oh, nothing to do. Breathe, come back to the breath and see what's around me immediately in my immediate locus. What can I control? Okay, I can't control big business again. I can't do this for the moment. But what I can control is this little seed and turn it into a plant. And watch the wonder that brings, the amazement of nature. So for me, nature is what I always come back to, I guess. And nature of my human self is I naturally breathe. That's fantastic. Nature of everything around me, well, that's a lifetime of visioning and experiencing and walking through the forest. And I love that. I love going for my bike rides. I love getting on a kayak on the river. But I can just love just walking. It's just the most basic happy thing for me. If I want happiness, money buys happiness, but so does walking. So does breathing. So does remembering how amazing that is. How what an amazing reality that all these cells, millions and billions of cells are working together. All these gut microbiomes that we have having these conversations. And when I come close to other people, which doesn't happen online, but when it does in person, they interact with other things. And I'm like, wow, what a miracle that is. So when I remember that, I'm not worrying about, oh, I lost $300 million. It's like, well, who cares about that shit when you have this miracle of life? So I find ways to remind myself, and it's not, everyone can do that. It's nothing special. It's just, as I said, looking around you, breathing, being in nature. That's how it works for me. It's my experience.
That's great. And you beautifully, you addressed also another question that was pending there for me, which is, what kind of practices do you do, and how do you recenter yourself and bring yourself around? And you described that really beautifully. And I know time's flying along, and you've got a gift for our audience, and I've got a final question for you, though I want to sneak one more in there, because what you just said sparked something for me, which is very interesting and about which I'm curious these days, in part because I have a 16-year-old daughter, and I'm watching her navigate this stage of her life. And we've just been in summer vacation here. And I look at, in my own life, I feel like it's been a journey of not only increased awareness of other, which you pointed to in terms of community, and also appreciating more and more the value and benefit that I feel like I get from producing or contributing to the world. And part of what I heard you say is, in those times when you're like, all right, I can't do that. What can I do? I can sit, I can breathe. And it sounded to me like part of what you said is, when you go through that kind of cycle, then pretty soon it comes to, well, and here's something I can give, or here's something I can do or produce. Exactly. How much do you think that is a, I don't know, natural, important, essential component, that production piece?
Well, for me, it's extremely important for me, and I can't say how it is for other people, because that's the happiness part. That's to receive. If you want to receive, you got to give, and I love giving. The more I find ways to give, and it's usually in the smallest ways. And that's my lessons, because I'm a big thinker. I love to think about how I can create multinational ways to change millions of people. But then if I can find a way to change the person in the shop, that when I went to buy something, rather than just giving the money, leaving the shop, buying what I need to do, I go, hey, how is your day today? And actually mean it, and actually look them in the eyes, and have that minute, that second even, of communication and connection. When I do that in whatever form it may be, and it may be in that form, it may be like, as I said, growing a little plant and then giving it to someone, saying, hey, why don't you plant this? Or harvesting something from a tree and passing it on. Or, it doesn't have to, it can be any of those things. That feeling that I get back is for me, is the beauty of life. It's the abundance of life, and there is always abundance in life, no matter how you see it. And it could be in pouring tea. I love Chinese tea ceremonies, and I love sharing tea. So I love pouring the abundance and sharing tea with people. So it's an open offer to people that know me. Come visit, share tea. I love to do that, and it's a gift for me to give, and that's how it feels. So does that, I think that's what you are asking, is that of benefit? And I think it's of benefit always, of course, because when we see the gifts around us, we get to share those gifts, and when we share those gifts, someone else gets to receive those gifts, and then that just cultivates more of this. We have everything that we need, and we don't need anything more. And in fact, being in a position, just listening to this show, being able to communicate with you, we are such privileged beings that there is, in this planet overall. I remember that, and especially, I deal with people from all over the world. I've got some great friends in Asian countries, African countries, that I support and mentor as I can. And what I realize is that, we are so blessed in this privileged situation to how we find us, whether we make $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, doesn't matter where we are at, we are privileged. And there's something that we can give to the world. And if we think that we have nothing more to give and we're just surviving, everyone is just surviving, but there's always something more that we can give. And as I said, that can be the most simplest thing. You can just walk along the street and in the public find a flower and give it to somebody. Those small gifts make all the difference. Now, if you have the opportunity to be big gifts, even better. So whatever you can, giving in that form. And giving looks so different for different people. For me, I like creating businesses which I feel are giving back from all of the experiences I've had. I'm creating some products right now in terms of weight loss and in terms of sleep, because I recognize that there are people, nearly 50% of people in America are overweight, and most people in the world are now having in the modern world are now having challenges with sleep. I'm like, wow, there are actually herbs that can help support the different systems in the body that affect and create those things, which may bring more self-esteem to people so that they can become more aware of their surroundings and become more abundant in their lives. How much do I want to share that? I really want to share those things because they seem obvious to me, but I realize they're obviously not obvious to everybody else. So why don't I put those out there? So that's how I love to give back, as an example of one way that I like to give.
Yeah, thank you. Well, what a great segue, because I especially appreciate the gift you have for our audience. As a former fat boy myself, who wasted a whole lot of potential happiness feeling so stuck with my fat when I was a kid and a young adult. You brought you're giving to our audience a free ebook on weight loss. Is that right?
Yes, I am. The free book is available online. You can just go there and literally just accept that book, which is really, we're actually selling a herbal supplement. Just my disclaimer at the beginning. Yet we do sell a product, and it is a tablet, a capsule, and it is completely natural. Works on a number of different bodily systems. And they've all been scientifically proven that you can lose many, many pounds just by simply taking a capsule without making any changes in your life. So that in itself is kind of fantastic, and an easy solution to losing weight. And that's great. And some people just want that. The book, though, is about everything around that, which is all the different lifestyle changes that one could take to support one's lifestyle, so one doesn't have to keep taking tablets in the future. That one doesn't need to do anything except to maybe make a few small tweaks to their lifestyle. And they are relatively small tweaks, but they're critical tweaks that we should all be aware of. Basic things like moving. Most people forget to move. Like, I've been sitting here on the call with you for an hour. Just moving, even just moving while we're on the call is so important to our entire being. So small little things like that, being aware of those things. So that's what the book is offering for free, just to give those tips to people. Can't give the capsules to people yet, and then not even being launched. So this is kind of a pre-launch, really. We're actually launching in a couple of weeks. The website is live. You can sign up and you can get the ebook now. But we're actually launching our product in about 2 weeks. So it's the first time I've ever even talked about this business. And it's a business that I've built up to, again, it's one of my give backs to the world.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, and I know, again, personal experience, losing weight when we felt stuck with that can be just so heavy, literally, and such a downer, literally. So it's the URL, the website for that free book is yourweightloss.co, no com, it's just co.co. And yeah, well, then with time flying along, I would like to ask you one last question, if I may, Mr. Benhaim, and that is that okay? Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So we've talked about so many cool things, and you shared a lot of beautiful wisdom with us here today. And if you put all of that behind us, what would you say to the folks listening and watching? What's the number one most important thing you can do to increase your vibrancy?
The number one most important thing to do to increase your vibrancy. That's a big question, because I as much as I say we're all the same people, and we're all connected, we're also all individuals. So a number one thing may be slightly different for different people. But I would say certainly high up on that list is movement. And I think that's which I alluded to earlier on. Simply just move. If you're not sure, if you're, don't sit in front of the TV, don't sit down thinking about things, just get into nature, move, walk. You don't have to do anything big. You don't have to go and do workouts. That will come later naturally should you want to progress. All you need to do is walk. So that's my one simplest thing that I can share today that has been powerful for me and powerful for those around me. So may that support you and whoever's listening in this journey. I wish you the most vibrant life ahead that exists right now. Just go and take it. You deserve it.
Awesome. That's so cool. Thank you. And, and for me, I grew up in a sedentary family, and that was just not part of our culture. And I'm just like you, that's for me with my clients and students, that's one of the top most important things. You just got to move. Like that's such a basic thing, many ways. So I love that you brought that forward. And I am so grateful, Paul, that we got a chance to connect and that you woke up early down under to be with us here and share your wisdom and experience. And anything you want to say in terms of how people can best reach you if they want to connect more?
They can reach me through my Facebook site, through websites. I'm quite a public person because I don't mind being reached. I can help people where I can, and where I can't, I'll usually happily share where they can go to. That's me. I'm here in Australia. If you're in the Byron Bay region, stop in for a cup of tea. If you like a walk, I'm also love a walk and a talk anytime.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much for being with us. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Again, whether it was live or by rebroadcast, I'm just so grateful that y'all are with us, that we have this chance to come together. And Paul said it so well, you'd absolutely deserve the most vibrant, thriving life possible. And it's up to you and all of us together to create that. Thanks, y'all. Aloha.
Aloha.
Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.